Show. I'm Tom Hazzard, one of your guest co hosts today, along with my partner, Tracy Hazzard. We are hosts of Feed Your Brand podcast, and we have supported Scott in his podcast since 2017. And this is Scott's 1000th episode. So, Tracy and I are very excited to be here. Scott asked us to be guest host today and interview him for the 1000th episode. So, that's what we're here to do today. Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself and share a word?
So, yeah, we're crashing the Note Closer show today to make sure we flip the script and get Scott in front of you guys, not teaching you all about note closing, because I know he's done a fabulous job over 1,000 episodes. However, we want to get to know why Scott did what he did, why this podcast has made it to 1,000 episodes, because very few make it past 10. And what's in the future for the next 1,000 episodes. So, Scott, Carson, I am so proud to be not just, your support system here on the Note Closer show, but I am proud to be your friend and see what you've done with the Note Closer show. How proud are you of yourself?
Well, pretty proud. I never thought we'd get to 1,000. And that's when I was talking with Steph about this episode coming up and what we should do and who should we have on. And overwhelming right off the bat, it was like, we got to have Tom and Tracy on because you guys were the boot up the ass to start this thing that took 6 months for me to get around to doing. And it's been obviously very, life-changing. It's been revolutionized my business. It's helped us stand out. I would actually say it's saved my life from having to be such a road warrior like I used to be back in the day, traveling so much, being able to be home. And I think it's helped. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of people that the show has helped. That's the first thing. That's the most important thing is our audience, the views, the videos and stuff like that. That's the big thing. I'm always overwhelmed that somebody books a phone call or somebody gets on. So they've been listening to me for 6 months in their ears and they're ready to move on or have a question. That happens every day. And it's always I'm always amazed that people still show up to listen to this Ingle Dink from Ingleside, Texas. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Gosh.
You know what's really funny about this is I was reflecting on when we met you at the Laughlin event, which is it was in San Diego, and it's one of Magnify Your Wealth is one of my favorite events, just because our mutual good friend Aaron Young runs it. But he always brings the best people, and you were one of them. And Tom kept bugging you about podcasting, and I said to him, I'm like, I think you should just lay off Scott. Look, I mean, he's busy. He's always on the road. He's not going to be able to handle this podcast. And Tom said, no, I feel it. He's going to be a great podcaster. And Tom was absolutely right.
Well, wait a second. Of course, this is, a number of years ago. It's like 8 years ago now. And I didn't think I was that pushy, although I will tell you, I really did see, gosh, for Scott, this is a layup. He's already recording and doing these Facebook Lives. That's ideal content to also be used as a podcast. And you're right, Scott, as you said, you haven't had to travel as much. We saw each other a lot in the early years at different events. And you and I have gone to some podcasting events together. We've done and collaborated on a lot of things. I mean, everybody should understand. I want to be a little transparent. We've become friends, and I actually, because we haven't traveled a lot lately, we haven't seen each other in person in too long. So we got to fix that, number one. But it's, it's true. You don't have to travel as much unless you want to. And certain events we all do travel for that are important. But there is so much you can do with one piece of content. And you have become a prototypical example of how to do that. And look, maybe we should reveal a few stats, at the moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Scott, let's talk about your podcast stats first, and then we'll talk about YouTube because we have a lot of repurposing going on here. So you started out actually fairly good with stats because you had a community. So you already had a list to send to. And so your stats started out fairly well for a podcaster from our perspective. Do you remember what it was in that first year?
Yeah, it was basically when we started actually released from November to the end of that first year was only like 4 or 5 months. We hit 50,000 downloads in that first 5 months. And I mean, it helped that before we launched it, we were doing Facebook Lives. I mean, I remember going to an event in Vegas and Gary Vaynerchuk and Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank getting up there and saying video's everything. I remember coming home November 1st, because it was a Halloween event in Vegas, and telling my staff at the time, I was like, no, we're going to do a video every day. Let's do a short video, Facebook Live video every day, and just share it. And we did that for 5 months. And that same, well, we did it over 150 days. In that same time frame, I can remember talking with Tom, and Tom saying, well, you guys do all these lives, you should do it. I'm like, I don't want to spend 4 hours of time breaking down, an hour of video. I don't want to do all that editing. That seems like a waste of time. I just want to be basically where I can record it and throw it up there. And Tom's like, well, you're using Zoom, you could do all the things. And I'm like, you're right, I could do it. But I was also listening to guys, a couple of my students, who were taking 4 hours to edit 1 hour of content. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Good for them. They can have that. And then go from there and flash forward people. I was in the Dominican Republic with one of the co-hosts. He's like, yeah, we're going to stop the podcast after 100 episodes. I'm like, you've got this niche there. You're stupid. Steph and I both looked at each other like, I got to call Tom when I get home.
Yeah,
We're
because
gonna
you
do
saw
this.
there's an opportunity. There's going to be a gap in the podcast market, right?
Yeah, because there's literally like one podcasting out there. It was, Note MBA, Robbie Woods, who was a previous.
Well, and I think that really helped you with that 50,000 at first. So not only did you have your own community, but you filled a gap that happened right at that moment in time, which is actually what happened to us on our 3D print podcast at the same time too. And so then now fast forward to 1,000 episodes later, you've got 1.4 million downloads is what you told me?
Yeah, something like that. 1.4, 1.5. I got to look back at it. Because it's
Wow.
over we get the first 300 episodes. It's volume 1, and then when Apple changed to doing more than 300 episodes, everything else is on that current episode. Yeah, so it's over about it's about 1.5 million, is what I was looking at the other day.
That's
So
fantastic. You should be so proud of that because I mean that is just really good numbers, not only overall, but I was taking a peek at your stats behind the scenes because I can, because
sure.
we own the company. So I was peeking, and you still have some significant episodes that spike throughout, and you must be doing something to share those consistently. Are you sharing them in your emails? Do you have a revolving set of, I'm going to call them like 101 shows that you're using?
I don't do a lot of recap. We have a newsletter that we launched with LinkedIn last year, so we go back and we'll throw a throwback episode. I will take that. I do keep track of what's going on in the news with some of my different like audience members and stuff like that. So if I hear them pop up in the news, like we had Ryan Broyles, who was a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, and there was a big article about him. He went to the University of Oklahoma. So if something pops, like the Detroit Lions are playing the NFC Championship game, I'll reshare that episode, and that has done some things. Or other folks will pop up from time to time. Like I guess our biggest, I guess you say, name we've had on was like Dean Graziosi. And, he's not much in real estate now because he's Tony Robbins' right arm, I guess, about the mastermind stuff. And I was really excited about that episode, but it didn't do so well. And so we'll still share it. It does some stuff. But I mean, our episodes get about 1,000 downloads per episode for the most part, when it's something that aligns with our audience. If I get a multifamily guy on who's speaking, it doesn't do very well because people aren't showing up to listen to multifamily stuff, So,
Well, and that's what you've done really well. I mean, look, you already had that in your business and brand. And I think that's why the podcast just aligned with all of that. Podcasts do better when they're deep in their niche. And you already knew that intimately. You knew what your audience cared about. You knew how to talk to them in a way that they would receive that, like, so it wasn't over their heads or too basic, and you really got them and they felt that and they stayed around and they're still listening.
Well, there's the thing too. We always talk about avatar, right? And so I know my avatar and name them. The female listener, which is about half of my audience, is Laura, and the male listener is Steve. All right. So I always think about, I'm talking to Laura and Steve about what their concerns are, what their needs are. They're the two of our biggest listeners out there that listen to stuff on a regular basis. And we have other folks that are just as passionate, so it's no offense. But Laura and Steve is who I think about, who I'm hosting for. What does Laura have as questions? What does Steve have as questions? What's affecting their business? And that's the one I think the thing that really helps is answering questions from the audience and listening to what people are asking for. And we try to do that. And once every 6 months, we send an email out to our database, say, hey, what do you like? how are we doing? And I encourage constructive criticism. What would you like us to talk about? Who would you like to have on? What subject matter? And so that fills the bucket for when it comes to content ideas. That's why we never running out of ideas even after 1,000 episodes.
Well,
Well,
that no
that
closers listeners out there, he just told you if you have something you want, reach out.
you
And
know,
I'm always amazed that people. I mean, I don't make it. My number is not hidden. My Calendly link is very easy. Talk with Scott Carson. So people are always amazed that they're actually talking to me. Like, oh no, I want to take those phone calls. I want to hear from you what we're doing well, what we're not doing well. So and I think that's one thing that stands out more is, especially as more podcasts have popped up. I'm always amazed how many people are unreachable, or it's not. I mean, Tom and I were talking about, I guess you could say, competitor podcasts. It's sinking like the Titanic because they're not doing anything to listen to their audience. And I hear that from everybody on a regular basis. Like, hey, nobody covers the topics that you cover. You're not afraid to, throw some smoke or shade, or just call it out, even calling yourself out on mistakes you've made and stuff like that, and just trying to be as transparent as possible for our listeners out there. Because I'm just a normal guy, like anybody else. I'm not better than anybody. I've just been at this a lot longer than most folks.
well, and you're really passionate about what you do. You've learned over the years better than anybody I've ever heard about in the note business. And obviously, your audience knows what that is, so I don't need to explain it. Usually, when I'm talking on my show or another show, I got to explain what that is. But, um, you know your subject matter so well. And, as economic times change, I've always been impressed that you can see what's coming down the road. And I'm sure you're sharing that with your audience so they're prepared. So it is really a journey. And, you said a few things that I want to just draw some attention to. You haven't run out of things to talk about after 1,000 episodes. That's one of the newbie podcaster sort of rookie errors, is worrying about having anxiety over how am I going to come up with something to say every week, once a week for a year. And that's only 52, right? And really, the people that know their stuff, know their audience, and are, have something that really is meant to support and teach and, nurture, foster this community that you have over, months and years, it will last. There are always new things to talk about. And for you, you're one of the most passionate people, in marketing, really, that I know, because let's face it, that's what this is. Yes, you are genuinely providing a lot of value for free in your podcast and in your Facebook lives, in your videos on YouTube. You're providing a lot of value, and people know it and feel it. You mentioned you're relatable. That's podcasting in general, is, to be real, to be there. Now, I think the people that, have sort of their hand out the Heisman to their listeners and don't want to speak to them, and they get a generic email and it goes to an assistant and maybe it'll get in front of the host at some point, they're not going to do as well because they're not as relatable.
So I think that that's the key here, Scott. And that's what I wanted to expose, because your listeners here don't care about podcasting as much as the fact that they're listening to the show, right? They're not
Right.
here to be podcasters. But I think all the work and all the prep you put behind the show, too many shows go into the system model. Not that you don't have one, but you've made it so that the system still has high touch and connection to you. So let's talk a little bit about that system of preparing for coming up with ideas, visualizing Laura and Steve and what they want to hear, and how you prepare to do your episodes.
So first and foremost, I keep a list of questions that people have asked or talked about, specifically after a 3-day workshop. We host our 3-day workshop 3 times to 4 times a year. And like, I just got, I always talk to people on there after the class. So what did you like? What did you like the best? What did you like the least? Or what would you like to see more of? And that's when it's hot, but like within the first 2 days after a workshop on a Tuesday, Wednesday, we wrapped up on a Sunday. Or I take notes of the questions through the chat roll as well. So that leads to good questions and topics for the most part. I also do some competitive searching. What's been hot in note investing for other people's shows or other videos out there that people are answering? That's always a good thing, YouTube has been really good in giving inspiration stuff for content gaps that I've been looking at and using some for that. And then, of course, look at our library, who did really well in the last 12 months, what topics did well. I know I'm always going to have people that do well. I mean, episodes do well when I talk about finding deals and raising capital. Those are always the two biggest things that year in, year out, you do really well. And I always look back at what did good last month. And my episodes with me teaching do better than guest episodes most of the time.
I remember when you shared that data, and I was like, that's just fantastic understanding, right?
Well, and that's also too, like, folks, I've been on enough other real estate podcasts where there are all these people, experts aren't sharing their expertise. They're just other people, other people, other people, other people. And we do a little bit of coaching with a few real estate investors. I'm like, listen, stop sharing that stage with everybody else besides you. Start doing an episode that's just you talking about content or what your expertise is, Airbnb or being a realtor in Minneapolis or something like that. Because that's what people tune into, is they hear you. I'm not for everybody. Not everybody's going to like me. That's A-okay. I'm comfortable with that. But you got to share that guest expertise. And that's one thing I like, okay. Like, there was a string I did, like, a lot of other interviews, and my numbers were going down. I'm like, what is, this is good content, but it's not necessarily note investing topics for the most part. So that was eye-opening. So I'd say no to a lot of guests like that want to come. I was like, you're just not a fit for our audience. It's not going to do well. Now, if you want to pay me,
you're really careful about it. And I think that's really the difference right there, Scott, is that when you say this, I hear these people who are out there, and they're the same ones who might be building this sort of system of podcasting, and they build this team around them, and you can't get to them and everything. And they think it raises the authority. But what really raises the authority is being so audience focused that you know exactly what they want before they want it, because somebody has to be at the edge of what's going on. And you can't do that if all you ever do is search on YouTube and search on Google for what's trending. It's already over by the time it hits there. You're at the cutting edge of what do they need right now? What areas of the marketplace are they looking at? And, you're on the edge of that because you're taking their input first.
Yeah. And then we also focus on pop culture too. So like we go to the movies probably twice a week on average base here. So I'm always looking at previews and how can I instill that into a podcast episode. It's like, you remember the movie with the guy from Better Call Saul? He did the series where he's like a retired hitman or something like that, enforcer, called Nobody. Well, they're coming out with a second movie, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. The Nobody Note Investor. You know what I mean?
So you like your tie-ins. I love it.
Yes, exactly. Like the Marvel Civil War. So we did an episode that was first versus seconds, and we used the artwork with my face as Robert Downey Jr.
Well, and you have your Note Night in America, which is over your shoulder right there, which I
exactly.
always loved.
Yeah, we changed it more than 10% so the NFL or NBC can't sue us. A lot of stuff. But that's the thing, we have fun with it, and try to make it a little bit of comical and use some of that stuff that's in the news, that's going to actually help a little bit of the SEO search and stuff like that. And then, as you guys have always talked about, making sure your thumbnails and artwork is relevant and doing that. So it's changing of the eyes. I would say competitors that have the same kind of color branding and stuff like that, but the thumbnail is always them in the same place. The title is always the same thing. So if you're sliding through their YouTube channel, it doesn't, nothing stands out. And so we do enough to change and catch people's eyes with different, poses or AI images or other stuff that we can do to grab people's attention to listen or watch.
That, and I know this isn't a podcasting show, we're just the podcast people interviewing you, but that right there is one of the biggest golden nuggets of information that anybody who happens to be listening to this that is in marketing or podcasting really needs to take notice, is changing those, having unique artwork like that for every episode is key. It's going to get people's attention. And you're right, Scott, over the years, I've seen, because we've supported several other note investing podcasts, and they have come and gone for one reason or another. You've really stuck through it and stuck with it, and not because I would say you've done it for the right reasons. You've done it because it is an integral part of your business. You like it. You're serving people. And I'm sure you're going to be around. If anybody's going to be around for another 1,000 episodes, it's going to be you.
Well, your
sure.
audience is still there. right?
Yeah.
And they
Right.
haven't left you because you're still providing that deep niche value that they are looking for. You're a step ahead of them, and that's something of great importance to them, and they're not going to let that go. So they're going to follow wherever that's going. And one of the things that I really want to highlight, Scott, because I think that this is really a key to why you're so successful, is that you look at what you just said, is that yes, my audience wanted to hear from me more, but that doesn't make the show about me. It's still about them at the end of the day. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is it's a vanity project. And this is, We Close Notes is all over the place so they can find it, but not because it's all about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's things that we do that nobody else does in the industry, like taking these big lists, which is always surprising because I would think somebody breaking down an Excel spreadsheet would be a pretty boring episode. You know what I mean? And but those always do well. I was breaking down a tape of multifamily notes, or like today's episode I just recorded 30 minutes before we got on was just going through an individual note in Floresville, Texas, and going through the numbers and talking about why this deal makes sense or what could also make this a dud of a deal, and going through the specific numbers of that and case studies. And that's what people want. They want case studies that they can learn from. They want to peek over my shoulder and see how we break down assets or lists of these deals to find the real wealth in the that's the needle in the haystack kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're still doing that. And that's the other thing that I think gives your show such longevity, is that the market is always changing. So somebody has to be deeper in the know than I am about what's happening in different regions and areas. And that's something that you really do broadly focus on, is your regions, and you have them all over the place.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something too. Is it's not just Austin, Texas, or Texas. It's nationwide, and we try to cater to that of and targeting different markets and doing updates from different cities from time to time with either investors or realtors out there. Or when things change, try to highlight those as best we can.
So we alluded to before that we were going to hit your YouTube numbers, which we didn't. So you did about 1.5 million in podcasting. How are your YouTube views?
YouTube views have gone up dramatically. I mean, so this is the second birth of a YouTube channel. So most people don't know I had a YouTube channel beforehand. I don't remember the subscribers to it, but I had about 900 videos on it. Going back to when I first started doing stuff. We're talking to 2007, 2008. And then I made the stupid error to boost it through like a Fiverr thing, pay $10 to boost a video. And YouTube shut me down overnight. All right.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
They
hurt.
weren't real people. They weren't real viewers.
No, they weren't real people. I thought they were a little bit. I mean, but it shut me down. So I was like, okay. So I started a Vimeo account because that's where I was still creating video. I need a place to hold it. And, those did okay. It's the only choice for a while. Then we waited a while, started another YouTube channel, and we would get 2,000 views a month. I wasn't real serious about descriptions or artwork or tags. It was just record it and throw it up there, record and throw it up there, record and throw it up there. And it did okay. But when we got serious about going back and doing things and learning from different marketing conferences, learning from you guys and your coaching calls too, that you guys do on a regular basis, or us sharing ideas on stuff, I was like, okay, I need to be much more serious about it. So it goes from 2,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 to last year it was doing about 10,000 views a month, which I thought was really good.
That is really good.
Yeah, for a niche
For
channel.
most podcasts in a niche, that is very, very good.
Yeah, their videos don't normally do that well. So, yeah.
No, I mean, that's, views on a month. It wasn't an individual video doing that.
Right.
Individual videos were getting 200, 300. Someone hit 1,000 on different topics. Because you got to realize the note audience is much nichier than your fix and flippers or wholesalers or landlord stuff or Airbnb. But that's okay. I was fine with that. But then I went to a conference and I heard somebody who's also a real estate investor here locally guy. He's like, oh man, you're not doing any shorts. I'm like, no, I don't have the time. He's like, oh, there's a couple tools you can use. And so we started, okay, I started doing one short video per day that I would share everywhere. And they started getting some views. We get 1 million views on TikTok. I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. That's pretty easy. YouTube's would do better in growth. But then we started using a tool called Opus Clip, which is an AI service that takes our videos, our longer form videos, and splices up. And then the last 6 months, that's grown by about 400,000 views in the last 6 months to take us over the top to where we just hit 1 million views on the YouTube channel on Saturday. And our best month of 90,000 views last month alone, with people spending an average of 11 minutes on the channel at any given time.
That's
so that was pretty
fantastic.
exciting. Yeah.
That is
Now,
great growth, especially recently. I do think it's important for people to understand it's the shorts you were saying that really have gotten the large volume of views. That's why it's accelerated from the 10,000 a month to 90,000 last month, is mostly the shorts. It's not that the long form videos are not important. They're not getting good, solid views. They are. Shorts is a different animal, and it is a different viewer, a different YouTube viewer a lot of the times, not the same one. So, but it's fantastic no matter how you slice it that more people are taking notice and are aware of the No Closer Show because of the shorts, which comes
And
but
back
you
that's
to
are
marketing
seeing a
and
growth on your
awareness.
live side, right, Scott?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you are.
exactly. That's exactly the live side is still long form content. We're not
Mhm.
seeing a reduction in that. That was a big thing. If I was going to see a big reduction in the live stuff, I wouldn't be doing as many shorts. I mean, we're trying to put out 5 to 10 shorts that are just splices of my longer form content daily because nobody else is doing that, right? And it shares it to all the socials, and we see me uptick across all our socials except TikTok, which is kind of funny. But I don't
That's
care
because
about it.
yeah, you got the TikTok boost at the
Yeah.
beginning, and then you get crickets after that.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is that we've seen it going from like 3 minutes to 4 minutes to 5 minutes and up to just, it was just under 13 minutes last month. It was at 12 minutes this month, as far as just the live time, live videos where people spend that time on watching content, which tells me people are liking the content and sticking around longer for it too. So the shorts are
That's a
driving viewers, which leads to more long-term viewers and more subscribers too.
that's a huge statistic to be monitoring and to realize, because you're everybody who's doing this with social media. I mean, let's be honest, we all experiment with it at
Yeah.
times. We don't know what's going to work, right? So you put all this content and you have to evaluate all the numbers. Is it working? Is it not? One big measure for you is you've been watching, how long are people spending on my lives? Those people that join it are, and the amount of time is increasing. That tells you that there's some real good reason why you should do those shorts, because they're working. They're bringing people into the lives.
Yeah, exactly. The lives, replays, the watches of those videos, and then those also turn usually to our better podcast episodes as well too. So we see more people going back and watching a couple videos, or going back and watching more, listening to podcasts. And this is the one stat that you were surprised of too, is that when we do promote an episode, we will talk about the video. Like we should send an email blast out usually 3 times a week with the newest episode. And we give people the option to either listen to the episode or watch the episode, but we're not sending it to Spotify or Buzzsprout or Apple. It's literally straight to the website that you guys have helped so much with, and being where they can listen to it on the website. And that's our number one platform. Most of what people think is their cell phones or their tablets. No, our number one platform that people consume is actually on their desktop.
But that's what people
Yes.
miss out,
Yeah.
right? They don't understand that is actually, because I mean, if I'm going to look at a spreadsheet and I'm going to be like, okay, here's my spreadsheet and I want to compare to Scott's video, I'm going to replay, turn it on, turn it off, and check on my spreadsheet. Like, I can't do that on my phone.
Try and do that on your phone. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to get really a lot of, well, it's just not.
You better have good glasses there that you can
That's
see
right. We
small
don't.
print. You know what I mean?
And easily be able to switch between apps. I mean, you can, but let's face it, it's nice to do it when you're sitting at your laptop or your desktop machine, or a lot of us have a second monitor and you got the spreadsheet over there and the show here, and you can pause it and then look. And I mean, that's got to be what most people are doing. And yes, I mean, this is true not just for podcasters, but marketing a business in general. You want people to go where you have the most control over what they're seeing, and they're not being distracted by other people's stuff. And that is your website, folks.
Yeah. So
It's
looking at
100%.
last month's numbers, 78% of people watched or listened to the show on their computer. 4% were on phones, 17% were on smartwatches. All right.
Smartwatch has been an increasing thing in the last couple of years. We've seen that a lot. We have some shows that are like 75, 80% smartwatch.
Wow.
different kinds of shows though,
Yeah.
where people don't need to be looking at a spreadsheet or examining all the different things. Gosh, I mean, I know enough about what you do. There's a lot of detail and references people need to go through,
Well,
listings
Les, it
of
links to your
homes and things.
resources are so
Yeah.
valuable, and it's just much easier to remember when we close notes than it is anything else, right?
Well, that's
And
the thing
so,
is that you try to make it as simple. I mean, the note closer show doesn't roll off the tongue, but we close notes does, So I probably would have changed it a little bit differently. I'd used it a little more, but the note show was already taken by somebody else out there who talked about music, not or paper, not notes. So
not the
uh
same kind of thing, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But it's, the nice thing too is that you guys talk about driving them to your website, capturing their information. They're looking at other things on the website, and like, retention.com has been one of the best tools you guys have sort of given me for years
Good.
of pulling and seeing what episodes people are watching to when they're first arriving and seeing and then using that also too, what does well, what's getting people's attention, do more of that stuff.
Well, I do actually really like, Scott, that you have Note Closer Show and We Close Notes, because one of the problems that we have with a lot of podcasters in general is that when their brand, their website, and everything matches to the show, they think it's all duplicate content, which isn't the way you're set up. You have so many resources. You have your events. You have all the other things that happen through We Close Notes. And the Note Closer Show is kind of like the entry point, the icing on the cake, the explanation, the ability to connect and hear more about what's going on right now. And so I think that does actually work nicely together. And so I'm actually glad it worked out like that for you, because I think at the end it actually is a key factor. But you have to be starting to think when you hit 1,000, because we're seriously there in the same place that you are again, because it happened to us with our 3D print podcast already, but we're here again with our podcast content. How we organize this and what we do with this content that we spent so much time and energy. So, how are you? I'm going to say catalog, playlisting. What are you doing with this content besides the fabulous repurposing that you've been doing? But what are you doing to help organize it? And what's next for that content?
So we were messing around with a service that we came across as kind of an AI tool that we could upload a bunch of videos to the service, and you could type in like looking for raising capital, and it would find the videos out of this batch and give you specific, like you would go into the video and find the exact transcription, the moment in the video. And that worked okay, but it was kind of clunky. It wasn't as effective as I wanted it to be. We are also going back in now, and just the podcast, not all the other videos, but with the podcast, going and organizing 1,000 episodes into other specific playlists like deals, assets, case studies, tape breakdowns, marketing. So we have basically 4 or 5 unique playlists on YouTube for people to be able to use to go watch that stuff they want to binge it. But I really like the cloning, the AI stuff that we're using with Delphi. And we both, it's such a small world, Joe Fier, I've known Joe Fier for years too. Scott Duffy is big over
Yep.
at Delphi. I've known Scott going back 15 years when I met him originally at Greg Reed's Secret Knock event where I met Aaron Young. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
small world,
Oh yeah,
especially here in Southern
The
California.
the entrepreneurial networking
yeah.
definitely.
I almost
Yeah.
moved to Southern California too back in the day, but that's the thing is learning from others. That's the thing, being a sponge, not knowing everything. I think that's so critical to that. But then watching what Joe's been sharing and using this thing to create an AI clone where I've uploaded, the whole
What are you going to do
podcast
with the
episode.
clone, or what do you do with it already?
So I want to make it 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365 days a year Q&A spot for folks where people can literally go and ask questions of their note investing stuff. So it's a great place for them to go if they're too embarrassed to book a phone call, or
It's
I
2
know
in the
that,
morning and they're listening to the podcast. They
yeah,
really
or
just
they're
want to ask right now.
exactly, or they're working. The most important thing is if they're working on a deal and need an answer to a question they have on a foreclosure, on a note they're looking at purchase, something like that. So it's, we're already the most accessible, but this makes it even more accessible with a little Vulcan mind meld. You know what I
Well, what I
mean?
do like about the Delphi, and I think this is a benefit for you, because there is a lot of, I'm going to say, mistakes. It does make
Yep.
mistakes, right? It's
Yep.
not perfect, but they have a feedback loop. so you can see what question was asked and you can immediately go message that person and say, hey, I saw this and this is, while it wasn't bad information, it wasn't complete. And here's
Mhm.
something else you need. Or you can develop an episode on it. That I've done that 3 times already. So I really do think that feedback loop part is that learning part is going to be the most important for your future.
Yeah, that's helped out because I've definitely gone back and looked at everything that the clone has said, and it's about 90%. There's a few
Yeah,
things
there's
I
like
would,
10%. Yeah.
yeah, there's a few things that are off. I mean, part of it was you're coaching about, hey, not uploading the oldest stuff first. So I went back because I got the 2 volumes. Well, I unloaded the earliest 150 episodes because they're all kind of outdated. I mean, there's still good stuff on it, but it's outdated. And that actually boosted the response time. I also spend time playing in it and asking it questions and stuff like that to see what it would ask.
Well,
I
so Scott, one of the things that we can do is create playlists of your show, and that way you can just keep that playlist updated just for the Delphi. And so we're working on ways, because when you hit 1,000 episodes, it's really hard to remember what was good and what wasn't, right?
mhm,
I
yeah.
mean, you can't listen to them all again, but you're like, I'm sure there was something really valuable. So you can only go so much by your stats and the current listens, but the rest of it has to be done from, you in the moment going, this is timeless stuff that needs to go on my list.
Yeah, that's I would agree to that 100%. Of being able to, hey, this has got to go on the list, this got to tweak it. And I mean, YouTube's made some stuff. I'm excited to hear that you guys can do that with the poditize side of stuff. We're going to talk after
The
this because
playlist stuff, yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, so, obviously we're talking about some really cutting edge AI technology here that not every business is using. It's fairly new. And for those of you who aren't aware of it, I think it's important for you to understand this Delphi AI agent. It is a chat bot that, Scott's created one based on all his video content. Tracy has created one based on all her podcast content. And Tracy experimented a lot, and we share this to our audience on our show too. But you found, Tracy, that the podcast audio content actually worked the best. You tried your video content first, you tried your blog content. None of those worked. Rebuilt it with just the podcast audio content, and it was much more accurate. And I found, and some of our other staff on our team found, Tracy's agent was wildly accurate. And, when you're asking questions about podcasting, obviously yours is about notes, Scott. And I am very bullish on this technology. I think anybody who has a show, has recordings, has a business where you are a resource for a community of people, doing an AI agent is going to be critical in the future and a huge opportunity. But one thing that I'm wondering, Scott, and I don't know if you've experienced this yet, and this is the question I'm working my way to here, is are you getting people to really use it, or are they having a hard time understanding the real benefit to them of doing it? This is the thing. I think there's maybe a paradigm shift. People see a chatbot on the website and think, oh, it's another chatbot that's going to be really dumb, or I'm going to get a person that's not Scott who's actually somewhere in another country answering it. How do you now, or what do you, maybe we should brainstorm, how do you get people to realize, hey, this is me, this is my clone? You can get real answers from me when I'm not around.
So the first thing is I shared it with my members, people that were coaching students, and my folks that are paid a part of my monthly membership for $97 a month. I said, hey, it's beta testing. Please go ask us some questions. Go, please, type some questions into it besides me playing with it. I really want to see even people that had me on their podcast, their podcast, they went and played around with a little bit. So we've gotten not a huge amount of people, but I think we're at 30, 35 people who've spent some time on it. And we just did this like last Thursday. All right. So it's just been a couple days of people
That's
playing
great.
around.
That's less than a week from when we're recording
Yeah,
this.
yeah, exactly. And so
Wow.
I also went into some of the Facebook groups and said, hey, I got a bot. I've got a chat bot, a clone for you to go ask questions. I haven't even done an email blast out to my whole email database for it yet. It was literally, let's test around with it. Do I need to set some stipulations? I've seen others chat bots like Arnold Schwarzenegger's, which is pretty interesting, and other people doing like a 30-minute timer or trying to collect more user data after 2 questions. Can I get your first name, license? So I'm kind of messing around with a little bit of that, but it's great seeing enough people asking questions of people that know me or been through my training and one-on-one coaching. Like, this is pretty good. And one guy's like, yeah, I can hear your voice coming through the text message word for word of what you would be saying and how you're
And
responding
it
to a
sounds
question.
like you.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like me after uploading my audio to it too. So that's the biggest thing, is like getting people to mess around with it and understanding, hey, here's your 24-hour day, 7 day a week aspect of
See,
things. But
I'm
then,
really excited because a lot of the Delphi people are the systems people we were talking about before, right? They're like, I'm just going to capitalize on the latest AI thing and I'm going to say I did it, but they don't know how to use it. And you're the person who has a community who could use it. And you will stay in touch on the other side and keep that touch point of when you see something wrong, you're going to go correct it. They'll never look at it. They'll have some assistant who has no idea that it's wrong. And that's why it's going to give the chatbots a bad name, is the people who, it's just like podcasts. We have all these, we have 85% podcasters quit after 10 episodes or before 10 episodes. So, you're an exception to this. You're going to be an exception here too, Scott. That's why I'm really excited to see what you do with it from that community involvement kind of model and support to your community. I think you're going to do a fantastic job and you're going to figure out how to use it better than anyone else. And I
well,
look forward to that.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Ultimately, I'd love it to where they're teaching, the clone is teaching a 3-hour class, like our monthly class that we do for free for everybody, noteweekend.com, and allowing it to go in there. Maybe it's like, okay, here's a list of questions for you to answer in this order, based off of what the chapters would be in the actual class. And then that it can kind of evolve that way. So everybody's getting and asking questions differently, but getting the answers they want. And I don't have to be on there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like getting on there and teaching once a month for 3 hours and getting people there. But that could be something that's evolving every day.
Well, like maybe it could do the case studies, which are more like walkthroughs, like,
Mhm.
and then you can do the overarching commentary on like, oh, and here, like you can pop into the screen and say, like, here's what here's why we're doing this, right? So there could be lots of fun future. I could totally see you having I'm going to say a hybrid version of it where it's you
Well,
and the bot.
that's the thought. That's definitely
Yeah.
the thought of doing that. But then also taking some of the information when I'm not available, or if I'm down or traveling, and still being able to be more on time with episodes. We know that's the number one thing, is being consistent, of mixing in an episode here or there that's I've batch recorded or something like that for folks to learn from while I'm not able to record it. To still drive. Like I was looking at number of episodes, and we did like the first full year, first calendar year was 252 episodes. That's every day, basically, Monday through
That's every
Friday.
weekday. Yeah.
Yeah, every weekday it was like, woo, and then as low as down was like 39. And the lowest point when we took some time off and stuff like that. But we're getting to the point where we're averaging 10 episodes back, 10 episodes a month. So it's 3 episodes a week on average, somewhere around there. And I'm like, that's a good cadence that we can deliver on stuff. But I even toyed with that AI stuff. That I've seen other people do AI episodes where you lose so boring afterwards. And we've been tweaking it so it sounds with my inflections and my excitement. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you say you're so excited on your podcast? Like, because it's fun, it's enjoyable. It's me being,
This is me, right?
exactly. It's the old college DJ, or the kid that want to be the next Dan Patrick on Sports Center. Instead of saying da 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 da, it's welcome to the good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
So yeah, it totally is. It fits you, and that's really where Tom was right all along, that you were going to make a great podcaster. He was absolutely right in that, because it fits your personality. It fits the way that you like to serve and show up in the world, and it's dynamic enough for you. So I'm looking forward to the next 1,000 episodes. Do you have anything else planned you want to tell us about?
Well, I'm just excited about. I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at without you guys, your big support to begin with, and how you guys took on a lot of that production, splicing and dicing, blog writing, making our website much more SEO, being able to track the numbers very easily and pull the stats, and that you guys are always constantly also driving value with what you guys offer at productize.com. And that's what been the number one thing. Like I've had people like, oh, let's bring your show. I'm like, I ain't leaving. I'm happy here. I'm not getting, I'm not going to get the service anywhere else that I'm getting here now. And when you've been around different podcasting events, you guys would understand that, because there's others out there that you're just like, ooh, I don't want that guy hosting my show. You know what I mean? Or being a host of stuff. But that's, I think the biggest thing is that we're just keep cranking stuff out. Like I said, it's the number one lead gen for what we do. It'd be stupid to stop it. I don't have to work nearly as hard as I used to, and it's helped us build a worldwide audience of people all across the globe, from Australia and Israel to England and Russia and the Philippines. And I get people that, Spain, England, all that, Mexico, Canada, getting people to reach out to me that are listening. So it's literally, there's no investors everywhere, which most people wouldn't think that. They think they're just listening to the United States audience, and it does it. And then also, I mean, some people are like, well, Scott, you're sharing all this information. Are you giving away too much? And I'm like, no, because we still get plenty of people coming in. They're like, hey, if you're doing this on the free stuff, imagine what you're doing for our paid stuff. And that's
exactly. Yeah. And you provide value all over the place. Now, how has the events been as an offshoot of this? And I know events are having issues in some categories, but how is the event still doing?
So we still do pretty good on stuff like that. We stopped doing in-person events long ago. I think back when we started the podcast, we stopped doing in-person conferences, or 3-day workshops. It's always been via Zoom for the most. When I made that change back years ago, we were the first ones that did that. And it revolutionized getting people from all across the country to join and it saved people's money. People really liked that. Post-COVID, people were like wanting to get back in networking. So we did a in-person workshop early this year. We had 25, 30 people that came in, which is pretty good, decent for us here. Stuff like that. The live workshops. I'm not doing a very good job of marketing my 3-day workshops. Let me just be the first one to say that.
And it's fantastic, everyone out there who is interested in
it's
closing.
Great. It's great. I'm telling you that right now. It's great. We just get so bogged down and doing other things, looking at deals and stuff like that too, and supporting our current clients. But I'm always been thinking, since it's live on Zoom and I'm at home, I don't care if one person shows up or 100 people show up. Now, the 100 people show up, I get a lot more questions. I'm gonna be a little hoarser answering questions. But when 1, 2, or 3 people show up for the weekend, it's like, no, it's okay. I'm gonna deliver everything into them. And I found that over time, it takes people about 6 months to pull the trigger on something. And that's a longer play than most people want to look at. Most people are like, oh, I'll give them a week or a month. I'm like, no. I'm 6 months. Let's give people 6 months, because you never know what they're going through. They're not ready. When they're ready, they're ready. And we're going to continue to be here. We're not going to, burn any bridge with anybody and stuff like that. We're like, we want you here. Hey, I understand if things are tight, you got to get through a hiccup or something like that. That's fine. But we're here to help to deliver. We're not going anywhere.
Well, so Scott, I have to tell you that you know our daughter, because she also helped support you, because she was working for us at the time when you were getting started, and she was integral to the website side of things. So Alexandra still talks about so she's on the 6-year plan to participate with you, but that's okay. She still talks about how important that is, and that was because of attending your live event. And she always has it in the back of her big plan that she's got, that's where she will end up when she's got her nest egg.
Well, we'll definitely support her whenever she's ready to get rock and rolling. So
that's right. So 6 months, 6 years, doesn't matter. You're here for them. And 1,000 episodes in, you have definitely proven that you are in for your listeners. You are in for your audience. You are in for the note closers of the world. Scott, I'm so proud of you, and you should be so proud of yourself.
We're pretty excited. It's hard to believe, but yeah, 1,000 went by. I won't say went by fastest, but it definitely definitely been an interesting thing. So yeah, I'm like, okay, what's up for the next 1,000? What tweaks are we going to make here for 1,001 and going forward, some stuff like that, and then just keep delivering content. And as I say, as long as people keep listening, we'll keep showing up as well.
Well, next week, we won't be crashing here. You'll be back to the Note Closer Show, and you'll have Scott delivering on his content.
Thank you guys for jumping on here. It's been fun. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closer Show. If you like what you're listening to, make sure you subscribe or share with one friend. And as always, check us out at weclosenotes.com for all our information, education, classes, and resources to help you take your note in real estate investing to the next level. We'll see you guys at the top. Bye.
Woohoo. That was awesome.
Hey, real estate investors. So you want to dive into the world of note investing, but don't currently have the funds to sign up for an expensive class or a workshop or one-on-one coaching. Well, then you definitely want to check out the biggest bang for your buck in the note world, and that's our WCN membership. It get you an all-you-can-learn access to our class workshop replays, tapes, weekly coaching calls. For $97 a month, it's the biggest bang in the note industry because you get access weekly with me. You can book one-on-one phone calls with me. As we get different tapes in, we'll share them with our members after our one-on-one coaching students get access to us. We share a variety of tools, like I said, replays to the previous workshop, special discount codes to other events that you can take advantage of to help you get more bang out of your dollar every month. We've been investing in notes for over 20 years, and one of my biggest passions is helping note investors, big and small, get started buying notes. Yes, I got started years ago with no money, no savings, and no list, and I love helping people close on their first deal, get their first private funding partner to help them fund more deals and help them both make above average returns. If you're looking for somebody to help you take your note investing from 0 to 60 and want to get started, my WCN membership is a great place to get started. Like I said, we upload lists to it, video training, coaching calls for $97 a month. What can go wrong? The only thing we ask is you hang around for 6 months, and then if you don't like it, you can cancel. But check it out at noteumbrella.com. That's noteumbrella.com. That's our WCN membership. Get looking at assets today. Start putting your fingers on the trigger to pull the trigger on some note deals here before too long. Yes, anybody can buy notes. I don't care your age, your savings, what race, color, whatever it is. Note investing is all about what action you take, and the first action you should take is signing up for our monthly membership at $97 a month. That's noteumbrella.com. You can also access it by going to weekclosenotes.com and checking on the monthly membership. But we are here to help you. Scott Carson, the Note Guy. We look forward to seeing you at the top.